What's up, guys? 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗁𝗃𝗃, 𝘄cie𝗂𝗪𝗋. We got a double live podcast going on right now about La Letra del Año. Share the live, let people know about it. Like it so it pushes it up. Hello to everybody that's coming in. Oh man, Happy New Year, right? I tell you, when you got kids, the days kind of just run together. It's a little chilly down here in Orlando, you know what I'm saying? When you come down here for a long time down south, the blood starts getting a little thin, so it's hoodie season. Awesome. Just waiting for people to come in, populate. Very nice. We got Charlotte, 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗄, Rob, Boru. Shout out to all the members on YouTube. If you guys haven't had the opportunity, 𝗃𝗲𝗿𝗄𝗋𝗍, 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗄, how you doing? My godson Joaquin, Boru, Richard Massey, bendiciones, man. Hopefully 𝗃𝗏𝗏 is treating you well. Well, Michi, Boru, Happy New Year's. Happy New Year's to everybody. Just going down. Happy New Year's to Perky D, 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. Oh, Vince, what's good, Boru? See the abbreviation. Blessings to Kathy, Hemp Lord, Boru. What's going on? Praying for New Orleans. What's going on in New Orleans? Forgive me. I'll be at the house. I really don't watch the news that much. I hope everybody's okay over there. Boru to 𝗲𝗏𝗍𝗍. Hello. Oh, wow, there's a lot of people. And just like that, we have over 100 people on both. I got to pay attention to both of these here. That's awesome. Wow. It's your godson, Boru. A lot of Borus. All right, finally made it to the bottom. All right. Seems like we got a decent amount of people. So we've been doing this now for a couple years since we started the channel. And what's going on is, on an annual basis, basically, to give a brief history about it, this is known as La Letra del Año, right? In Yoruba, it's known as the 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏. And what happens is divination is done by Ifa priests to be able to determine what's coming this year, how we should prepare ourselves. And this is on a global level. So in Africa, it happens in June, based on their calendar. And in our tradition of 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏, it happens in January, right? So what ended up happening is all of the top priests got together and decided they're going to divine for the world. So on our side, it was people like 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏s, Bernardo Rojas, Tata Gaitán, Hall of Fame babalaos. And in Africa, it's whatever chiefs are over there. I know 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲𝗏 pulls one. I know there's one that's more centralized as well. So they go through the same thing over there as well, because if you guys have noticed, last night I was up late, so I was on the phone. And, around 2 or 3 in the morning, I think, is when all the information started coming up. So the one that we're going to interpret today is 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏, which is the one that comes from Día de Octubre, or La Casona as it's known. And for all of those that aren't familiar with basically what that means, is there's a house over there where all these old babalaos would go to do this ceremony. So it's basically the one that Miguel Febles left behind, which was left to him by all of the elders that came before him, whether it was Tata, Bernardo, really big guys, So what they pulled yesterday was 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏. And 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏 is a pretty popular odu. It's one that you're going to hear about a lot, whether you're a babalao or not, simply because it comes out a lot and it has a lot of great information associated with it. And it's one of the prettiest sounding ones. Like, for example, my odu is 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Otura. The nickname is 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏. Thanks for the New Year's glasses. And or you have other odus that have nice nicknames, but 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is one that just really rolls off the tongue. So it's definitely one that you're gonna notice rings a bell when you hear it, especially being that it's so popular and it comes with so much, grandiosity, basically, or grandness, better said. So 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is the way of saying 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏, right? And the interesting thing about this odu coming out is there was a recent slew of videos that came out on social media discussing the topic as to whether the babalawos could dance or not. And one of the odus that people were basing that the 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲 could not dance upon was this Odu of 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲. You know, it's really all based on interpretation, and I think it's a good way to start because it's going to lead into so many other things. But 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 is an Odu where there was a circumstance where everyone was coming into trance, right? And this was a blessing because the Orishas and the deified ancestors were coming back to earth every time the Batá drums were being played, right? And this Odu is where communication first manifested from a tangible standpoint. You know, things like the telephone and whatnot manifested here, and they all derived from the drum, right? So what they wanted to avoid is people all being mounted and no one being able to attend to the Orishas. For those who have actually been to an actual drumming, whether it's here or, you know, in Nigeria, the Orishas come into trance, right? Or the people come into trance with Orisha. And what they were trying to do was avoid a situation where everybody was in trance and no one could attend to them. So 𝗃𝗏𝗻 identified, being the original owner of the Batá drum, that the 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲s were going to have a very intrinsic role within that, being that, you know, by nature they don't come into trance. So if anybody did come down, worst case scenario, the awos were still going to be able to attend to them. Even though there's a bunch of Olorisha as well who do not possess the gift of 𝗃𝗏𝗻𝗃 yet, they usually do that. But actually, that's actually the original role of the 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲. After the Orisha would manifest and whatnot, we were the ones who would help translate and help attend to them. And as others were able to identify each of their spaces within the fraternity and spirituality, they started taking on the role. So in this Odu, it's identified why the Batá drum is able to call the Orishas from heaven to earth, and why the 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲s have such, you know, an important role within the Batá process, the Anya process. We're not the only role holders, you know, there's Olorisha brothers and sisters that incorporate as well, but that's why ultimately on this side of the world, no consecration of Anya or Batá can be performed without the presence of 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲s, which in reality, when we look at the spirituality in general, we need from each other. For example, the same way no Ifa initiation can occur without Olorisha being present, no Orisha initiation or process should occur without a 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲 being present. And this is the same here, just as in Africa. And this is one of the Odus that stipulates that. So, and it's also one of the Odus why certain houses of Anya or Batá state that to be initiated into that sphere, you can't come into trance with your Orisha. But the ironic part about it is when you look at 𝗃𝗍𝗃 and whatnot, over there you can initiate into the priesthood of Ayang in a more direct way, almost the same way we initiate into Orishas like Shango and Oshun on this side of the world. And I've even heard of them coming into trance with her. So it's really foreign stuff to us. But, you know, at the end of the day, from what I've noticed, the majority of brothers, whether they come into trance or not with Orisha or 𝗃𝗏𝗻, when they're playing the drum, none of that happens. Because Anya, just like 𝗃𝗏𝗻𝗃 and a couple other energies that are inside, don't like to share space. They kind of hold it down on their own. So that's one of the first patakis within 𝗃𝗏𝗃. 𝗃𝗏𝗃 is interesting as well because it has a pataki that speaks of when the Batá drum and Anya had no custodian, right? It had no one that would attend to her or focus completely on her or guard her. Because of it, people would take advantage of her, or people would do witchcraft to her. Like, you know, one of the worst parts of our religion or aspects that manifested here, honestly, is when people utilize a situation such as a drumming to be able to, you know, spread witchcraft easily. Unfortunately, it's a scenario where there's a lot of people and it's very easy to drop a bomb there. And they were actually doing witchcraft to the drum that either Shango or 𝗃𝗏𝗻𝗃 owned based on how you look at the pataki or the story at the moment or time frame. So Anya was suffering, Batá was suffering, and you know, she went for divination. A divination was performed for her, where the Odu of 𝗃𝗏𝗃 was revealed, where Ifa stated that she needed a custodian, or she needed to perform sacrifice to the deity known as Eshu. And when she did that, Eshu, in this case of 𝗪𝗓𝗪𝗪 Batá, presented himself and made himself available to protect her, right? That's why when you go to Batá drummings or drummings in general, you usually see an 𝘃𝗵𝗍 that's right there. It's usually 𝘃𝗵𝗍𝗲𝗏, or there's another 𝘃𝗵 in the Odu of 𝗿𝗲𝗿𝗲 that is the custodian as well, but it has to do more with the transmission or recording of sound. And then when you look in Africa, there's actually an 𝘃𝗵 that has a Batá drum that hangs around its neck. I'm not sure if it's 𝘃𝗵 𝗿𝗲𝗍𝗄 or 𝘃𝗵 𝗨𝗨, but it's something similar. And once 𝘃𝗵 started rolling with the drum, 𝘃𝗵 started protecting the drum. So when people would try to do witchcraft to Batá or to 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗏 or Shango, 𝘃𝗵 would be like, hey, watch out for this person, or hey, I'll handle that brujeria. He was always the eyes of the drum. And in 𝗿𝗶𝗍𝗶 is identified why the drum should always be protected or watched. So that's why, eso, 𝘃𝗵 𝗨𝗨, thank you. And that's why the drum should never be left alone. So, you know, even with my Aña brothers or brothers of the drum that I've met, there was always somebody that stayed with the drum. In modern times, you don't see that now. You see the Batá players, sometimes they'll go into a house, they'll leave the drum regao, and they'll go outside and politic and talk and do whatever it is that some of them might be doing, and they leave the drum alone. Really, really scary. Because this Odu of 𝗿𝗶𝗍𝗶 says that Aña is one of the most delicate orishas, period. The same way when I would go to an Ifa and I wouldn't leave certain things in the room alone, especially if they belong to my godfather. The same way when, you know, we go to a drumming or we're incorporating ourselves, one of the brothers always stays with the drum, and we kind of, you know, rotate in and out. And it's not that we don't trust the people that we've invited or that have invited us into their home, but it's, you know, it's basically protocol. You know, the same way we don't leave our children with everybody, the same way we don't leave our families with everybody, the same way you don't leave $1 million with everybody. You know, the orishas are as priceless as that. So a lot of those concepts first manifested here. So the 𝘃𝗵 that actually is the custodian of the drums of Batá are here. And then the same way, you know, the drums of Batá, all of the drums have an icon that go next to it that protect it. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. All right. Just the boss telling me, making sure I touch on some certain points that she wanted, right? So some good pataquis up front, but definitely, you know, when we're looking at La Letra del Año, we want to kind of look at it at a full or on a full scale. So one of the things about the 𝗿𝗲𝗍𝗶𝗍 that's really key is identifying the prophecy with which this Odu presents itself. So unfortunately this year, the world 𝗃𝗵𝗍𝗶, right? Or a negativity or a warning. I'll be frank with you. Some of the best years of my life have been me coming osobo. I think it keeps us a little more on point, and it keeps us a little more accountable. And with that, you know, those kind of habits, usually better things happen. Because usually when people come ire, they usually get very lax, or they're not worried about it, or they're like, I'm going to be blessed anyway. They might not be as motivated to perform the ebo. So the world 𝗃𝗵𝗍𝗶 basically at the moment. Now, the negativity that presented itself, or that we have to be careful with, is ona buruku, right? Now, the word ona means path, and buruku means twisted. So basically, it's a negativity or warning of going down the wrong path, right? Now, the word alaye was incorporated, which I'm guessing refers to the world, right? That the world is on the wrong path. And it's nitori egum, right? Now, the word egum means bone or spirit or spiritualities. So this Odu is saying that due to spiritualities, we're on the wrong path. Now, how do we interpret spiritualities? It can be that we're not attending to our ancestors, which this is one of the most ancestral Odus that exist, because this is the Odu of the 7 African powers, right? It could be that we're throwing too much witchcraft at each other and we're doing too much brujeria to each other. So that could have us on the wrong path. Or it could just be that we're in the wrong situations and not aligned with our destiny, and we're picking up energies and spiritualities that aren't compatible with us. Either way, if I was saying our spirituality or lack thereof, or overstimulation, because it's not productive to be fanatical either, could be causing us to, you know, lose, right? So if I was going to provide the recommendations that are going to counteract that, you know, as we go through the various pataquis within this Odu. Now, one of the things I loved the most about this particular one is that Odudua came as the Orisha that is governing the year, right? So usually when they do this, You have an Orisha that governs, and then there's a counterpart from a gender standpoint, opposite, that that accompanies, right? So this year is governed by 𝗪𝗲𝗿𝗲, who is our Messiah, our ancestral energy, all of these things, basically our prophet, besides 𝗪𝗲𝗿𝗲. And the accompanying Orisha from a feminine standpoint was 𝗃𝗏, who was the love interest of Shango, who was the deity that lives within, or is the deity that lives within the grave and consumes bodies and bones, together with her sister 𝗃𝗏𝗍, who unfortunately both went through the same situation with Shango. So immediately with these two deities, Ifa is saying that spirituality is an absolute priority, because 𝗪𝗲𝗿𝗲 is seen as a correlation to Egum, or the ancestors, and then 𝗃𝗏 lives in the grave. So that kind of leads us into segueing into a pataki. And before I do that, actually, you're going to notice, guys, as well, and you know, some people may agree, some people might not, but you're going to notice that there's an ebo that is associated with the letter of the year. Some people do it, I personally do not. And the reason being is because this divination is done by said institutions on behalf of the world. Maybe they do it for notability, maybe they do it out of the goodness of their heart, maybe it's funded by government, what have you, but that ebo is done by the brothers there on behalf of Earth, right? So to be able to pull out a sign like this, there's so many previous ceremonies that go into it. It's not for the faint of heart, it's very costly. So it's really just up to you. But me personally, I do not, because that is for the world. One thing you can never forget, regardless of all of this Letra del Año talk, is you have to do ebo from your hand of Ifa this year. And you have to get a reading with your padrino this year with Ifa, because Ifa is the only oracle that can see a year out, to be able to align yourself with your world. Because the 𝗪𝗲𝗿𝗍𝗍 says that every head is a world. So to find out what your letter of the year for your world is, you need to get a personal divination, either ideally via 𝗃𝗀 or at least 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲, to see how are things going to manifest for you. Because you can do the ebo from the 𝗪𝗲 of the year and things can go horribly, right? And to be frank with you, it's a little, you know, it's really up to the institution. But for example, you know, it's quite a play. Because let's say I pull out a letter of the year, right? And I'm like, everybody has to do this ebo. It's a really great way to make some residual income. Just being frank with you. As opposed to, hey, 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏, come in, get your reading, do things for you and your family, and that's what's going to be best. And usually I've seen that people get the best results with that. People have asked me, hey, Baba, are you ever going to pull, you know, a Letra del Año for Orlando or for your house or for any of those things? I don't anticipate doing that ever. Simply because I have so much love and respect for the commission of Miguel Febles, being that one of my ancestors, 𝗿𝗏𝗿𝗏𝗍𝗏, is actually in the photo with Miguel back in, I think, in '86. He's right next to him, next to Luciano Canto and all those guys. I have so much respect for what they did. I don't see myself ever doing it. And to be frank with you, there's so many letters now. I think, you know, to each his own. But if it's supposed to be a global thing, I think between the two nations, whether it's Nigeria or Cuba, ideally would handle it. Now, some people are like, well, Baba, you know, we need an 𝗪𝗏 for the area that we live in, you know. But if you're going to do that, in my opinion, I would just get a reading for yourself, and then no matter where you are, you're going to be okay, right? Someone put Maferefun 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, absolutely, because 𝗃𝗶𝗍𝗏 is the godson of 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, and 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 was 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏's manifestation, right? We'll actually get into that one, because I know some people have been asking me on the channel about 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, and you know, there's a couple sisters out there who are 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and their 𝗃𝗏𝗏, and it's going to be a couple, you know, weeks before we come out with anything on 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 on the channel as we proceed with our 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 series. So what ended up happening was that 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 was kind of wandering through life. He was looking for solutions. He was looking for guidance. He was trying to basically fulfill his destiny, right? And he kind of went through a couple different hands of different babalaos and priests, but none of them really, you know, caught his attention as being ethical or people that he could trust, right? So one day he arrived in the house of 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, who he didn't know anything about at the time. And this is actually one of the 𝗪𝗏s why the children of 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 can become babalawos, because 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 was 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and did perform divination for 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. When he did that, 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 was revealed as 𝗃𝗶𝗱 via his initiation, and 𝗃𝗏𝗵𝗔 was his godfather. And because of it, he received all of those blessings, where all of the sicknesses that 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 went through previously, Baba 𝗃𝗏𝗵𝗔 was able to resolve because of his prowess over medicine and magic. So this Odu states that, it's not always who we think is going to initiate us. It's the person that is most convenient for us. So one of the biggest mistakes people can make now is selecting somebody just because they're on YouTube, or selecting somebody just because they're on TikTok, or they have a Benz, or whatever is going on that seems positive about them. I'm not saying that those people can't be wonderful elders. I mean, we're on all of those mediums as well, but you have to get to know people and make sure there's a real preparation, because 𝗃𝗏𝗵𝗔, when he looked at 𝗃𝗏𝗵𝗔, he was a little taken off guard, because when you look at 𝗵𝗲𝗶𝗍𝗂, he was all flaco. He, had a couple sores, that had healed, and, all these different things. And he's like, I guess you're the guy. And it ended up being the best thing he ever did because of that. Baba 𝗃𝗏𝗵𝗔 always protected it and made sure he was good. So when we look on a global aspect, this Odu is saying that people need to choose elders and spiritual houses based off of substance rather than flash. Now that the internet has really taken over to a certain degree the propagation of Ifa all over the world, it's easy to get caught up in that. I mean, we have a huge following. There's a bunch of other people online that have a huge following. Everybody has their reputation, but you have to really look at people and get to know them and investigate, because it's almost like starting a relationship. You can't just jump into things. It has to feel natural. And if not, you can get caught up in a very negative situation, because if 𝗃𝗏𝗵𝗔 would have chosen the people who seemingly had more funds or more, notoriety, they would have never arrived in the house that actually saved their life, which was Baba 𝗃𝗏𝗵𝗔's. And one of the blessings that 𝗃𝗏𝗵𝗔 had was that they could always call on Baba 𝗃𝗏𝗵𝗔 whenever they had issues. So this Odu is saying that if Baba 𝗃𝗏𝗵𝗔 is seen as one of the Odus that provides salvation from sickness or poverty or any of these things, Ifa is saying that our elders are to be held in high regard. Even if they're not your elders, the elders in the community are to be respected, because through a misinterpretation or a misunderstanding, little by little, the integrity of our community basically deteriorates. So that's one of the Odus there as well. Take a quick sip. Happy New Year to everybody. So many comments. We got 81 on one. We got 200 over here on YouTube. It's wild. Share the video, guys. Like it, love it, algorithm, all that. To all the people that are asking to speak about other Odus, I appreciate it so much. We're just focusing on 𝗃𝗏𝗵𝗔 today. So, I mean, you're more than welcome to leave it in the comments. Odu interpretation sessions are available. Once we get through the 𝗃𝗍𝗔 series, we might start bouncing around. So be sure to email the channel and whatnot. And, maybe we'll talk about your Odu next. But, it's a way to get it a little bit quicker. But today is strictly focusing on 𝗃𝗏𝗵𝗔. Awesome. So one of the things that 𝗃𝗏𝗵𝗔 says is, or reiterates, is the importance of study. This is one of the first Odus where the signs of Ifa and their patakis and SFA were written down on paper. Once again, this is the Odu of communication, the alphabet, language. 𝗃𝗏𝗵𝗔 is somebody that is beyond intelligent. I've met a lot of really good spiritual professionals, babalawos, olorisha, oriates, that have this Odu. Really, really talented people, for all of them that have it in initiation. And it speaks of the importance of study. And there's a couple different reasons for that. One of them states that one time Olodumare asked Ogun to remember something, right? And Ogun was told to perform sacrifice to be able to, not suffer embarrassment. But Ogun, being somebody that was really self-sufficient, really, felt himself, he said, no one's going to be able to embarrass me. I'm Ogun. So when Eshu heard this, he actually started creating a lot of disruptions in Ogun's life, causing him to get distracted, until one day Olodumare visited him and said, hey, do you remember those 3 pieces of information or that Odu that I told you to remember? And Ogun was like, no. And he said, you didn't remember 𝗃𝗏𝗵𝗔? That's your Odu of initiation. You forgot it? And Ogun was like, yeah, I forgot it. And then from that day forward, Olodumare dictated to all the Babalaos and spiritual professionals, they needed to start writing things down. So this is the Odu where Ifa. So this Odu is saying that we're not studying. I just reconnected right now. So if it's still frozen, let me know. But this Odu is saying that we're not studying enough. People are focusing on other things rather than picking up the book. So this Odu says that it's very important for us to study, to be able to have competency, and to be able to present ourselves in a way to represent Ifa well and attend to our clients in the best light possible. Because if we don't study and we're not prepared and we go through embarrassment, we lose value in front of the client, and ultimately Ifa loses credibility. Not because Ifa is incredible, but because its practitioners aren't studying or preparing themselves. And that could be due to a lack of spiritual alignment as well. I mean, I'd be lying if I said, thank you for the confirmation. I'd be lying if I said I knew everything about every sign or that I remember everything about every sign. But as long as we maintain ourselves in a motivated study, even passively, a little bit every day, we'll always be ready for whatever presents itself. So this Odu says that we cannot allow arrogance or overindulgence in just oral tradition to replace opening the book and memorizing things, right? It's one of the overall messages from this Odu, because 𝗃𝗶𝗍𝗲 is a very studious person. I met 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁 brothers, very studious and capable people. 𝗃𝗶𝗍𝗲𝗃, very studious and capable people. Santeras as well. Everybody that has this Odu, if they study, they are 𝗃𝗍𝗃. So if we're seeing this Odu for the world, we all have to prepare ourselves, right? On any various level, whether you have Hand of Ifa or not, whether you have Santo done or not, Babalao or not, study what you can as much as you can. For the people that aren't initiated, study as much songs as you can, study as much about herbs as you can. Learn about the orishas you have, learn about the orishas overall, learn adimus. And it may seem very trivial at the moment, but you're going to realize that all of those things that you learn before going across the curtain is the same thing that is going to benefit you once you get to the other side. So for example, all those years that I wasn't able to learn how to run an Ifa, I was learning songs, and all those same songs are the same songs I sing when they invite me to do a matanza de ocha or in the Ifa or whatever. The same, like yesterday we gave the Yamala to Shango, learned those songs before I did Santo at all. Adimus I learned beforehand. Take advantage of the time. You know, a lot of people, you know, they don't really like the 𝗃𝗏𝗎 tradition because we're very limited on what we teach up front, but at the same time, they don't take advantage of what they could learn. So there's a reason that everything is in stages, because you're not going to have time to study those things as much once you get your license and you go through the curtain, as we like to say. So study, study, study. Write everything down. You know, keep detailed notes. Be careful with paperwork this year, investments. Make sure you're very diligent, tax information, whatever it may be, because this is an Odu of audits. So make sure, you know, you have everything in line, because Olofin audited Ogun and Ogun failed. So make sure you have your paperwork and you're organized as we enter into this new year. Make sure before these next 2 months are up, you have everything in order, you know. So study, study, study. Next, Batá. Now, if we're talking about the spiritual aspect of things, everybody knows that 𝗃𝗶𝗍𝗲 is the 7 African powers, right? Now, the 7 African powers is an interesting topic because I have like 3 explanations about the concept. And the first one is that it's the best-selling candle. I think there's so many people that it's freezing. Sorry, guys. I mean, it's a blessing, but there's so many of y'all that it's just it's crashing a little bit, you know. I think we're back on. I pressed reconnect. All right. So what happened is in Africa, there were 7 main tribes that they say, at least the way the paperwork says. And there was the 𝗃𝗏𝗎𝗄, right, which is us. You had the Bantu or the Congos, which are, you know, our brother Paleros. You had the 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗲, who were the, you know, the 𝗃𝗏𝗹𝗁 brothers. You had the Mandingas. And there were like, what is it, 3 more. The 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃s were there. You know, there were like 7 ancestral tribes, right? And there was a big issue that was happening. And the issue was slavery. And, you know, people from Europe and whatnot were coming to the slave coast to start buying our ancestors and hunting them and etc. So A couple of the tribes sold out, other than, you know, the 7, but the 7 who were enemies at the moment decided to have this huge epic conference and join forces, because they knew that, yeah, they had issues, but they had an even bigger issues with the guys who were coming off of the boat and taking their families in chains. So they said, let's unify for now and let's defend ourselves. And they actually went to war together as a coalition, you know, and they won. And, you know, after, you know, they were able to defend their space as much as they could. Some got captured, some died, some didn't. They said that if they ever needed each other, they would pledge loyalty and go to war together, you know, and they would put their issues to the side. So the Odu of 𝗿𝗲𝗿𝗲, the 7 African powers, makes reference to the strongest 7 antiquitous tribes of Africa that unified against oppression, right? So it's a really beautiful concept. Anybody who has this Odu and initiation, you know, there's a couple different things that the person needs to be able to, you know, be spiritually sound. This doesn't apply to the world at hand. I'm going to get into that. But they say that 𝗿𝗲𝗿𝗍 is meant to have 7 different spiritual pots. 1 large central one and then 6 smaller ones, each representing each of those tribes. Because it says that the person who is 𝗿𝗲𝗿𝗍 has a spirituality from each of those spiritual clans, right? With the central one being a prenda known as 𝗀𝗏𝗏 musangara, which, you know, all of your 𝗃𝗏 godfathers should have the literature to be able to provide. But, you know, it's a really epic one, because when you really look at it, you know, it's like, oh my God, you know, that's a lot of spirituality. But the person needs that to be able to align in a way where they can have tranquility. Now, apart from that, there's an 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏 verse that speaks of the 7 ancestral eguns that came down from heaven. And it's really crazy, because a lot of people thought the 7 African powers was an invention from the 𝘃𝗶𝗿𝗃 tradition. But this Odu has a pataki, or an 𝗃𝗏𝗏 and 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏, which actually resembles the one that is in the 𝘃𝗶𝗿𝗃 tradition. It's just more Afro 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏 egungun centric, where it speaks of the 7 ancestral egunguns who came down from heaven and established the egungun cult in this Odu. So they have a 7 African powers as well, even though it's all within the same clan. So ultimately, you know, 𝗿𝗲𝗿𝗍 is a spiritual beast that needs to really align themselves with all that they walk with, so they can see all of the blessings that are in store for them. But if they stay out of alignment with their ancestral selves, they're never going to reach their full potential. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of sacrifice. It takes a lot of money, energy, time, patience. But once the person gets things going, you know, it's really lovely, right? 𝗿𝗲𝗿𝗍𝗍 ifailu Batá omoire omowo lodafun Shango hawareo olua Batá iluaeo 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗏 hawareo ilua Batá. So that's one of the prayers that goes with this Odu. So it says 𝗿𝗲𝗿𝗍 ifailu Batá, that Ifa was the one who manifested Ilu Batá, or the drums of Batá. Omoire, the son of luck. Omowo, the son of money. Lodafun Shango, that which was prophesied for Shango. And if you guys hear the birds in the background, I got a little bit of brujeria to do later. You know, not brujeria, but I got some things to do for a client. So if you hear the cooing in the back, that's what you're hearing. I saw some comments there. Thank you. And this Odu speaks of when 𝗿𝗲𝗿𝗍 manifested the marriage between Shango and the Batá drum, or Anya, right? And people didn't want them to get married, because they saw that they would be a power couple. That if they unified, Shango with his passionate playing and Batá with her nurturing character and her sound, they were going to be able to be a very memorable couple, right? And for everybody asking about the lives will be on the YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe. So they went for divination, they performed sacrifice, they unified. They did a lot of ebos and processes to be able to protect themselves from the curses, from the people that were jealous, or all the witchcrafts that was being sent. And Shango and Batá were able to not only marry, but have sons, right? And this is where the juramento of Anya first manifested after the drum was constructed. Ultimately, the Batá drum, there's a couple different ideas, right? They say that the first person to actually have Batá was 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲. That's an Odu's like 𝗃𝗲𝗿𝗲. Even this Odu, or 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗃 makes reference to it. They say that who constructed it was Osang and Ogun. Osang for having the wood and Ogun for having the tools, but who ultimately stayed with her, you know, with 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗃's help was Shango, because he was enamored with her. He said, I can't get enough of her. To be honest with you, a lot of people say that Shango's favorite woman was 𝗃𝗲𝗋, and that is true to a certain degree. But his favorite female was Batá. They were so perfect because he would take the masculine superior role. Batá would take a more, feminine, submissive role. Even with that role, she still was able to exude prowess through her tutun. And they were just a perfect couple. They were perfect for each other. They understood each other and their dynamic. Until this day, we've never been able to separate them. As such, the Batá drum, even though it's played for all the Orishas, belongs to Shango. Even in Africa, it's pretty much Shangos and Egunguns, where you look at the different drums. Like for 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲, it's Igbing. For 𝗃𝗲𝗍, it's Dundung. Like there's different drums for each Orisha. In the New World, being that we couldn't bring all of them over, Batá got passed around to everybody, but ultimately the guy who ran it was Shango, right? So this Odu speaks of that marriage, and for all of the people who have a pending tambor this year, it wouldn't be a bad idea to make that happen. If you're looking for a good set of tamboreros in the Central Florida area, I highly recommend my brother Damien, 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗃 and his piquete, beautiful brothers, amazing guys, people that I fraternize with. And, but if you're somewhere else and you have a great group as well in your area, make sure, and I know the Tamborero brothers are going to love me for this, but make sure you finalize any drums that you may have. It wouldn't be a bad idea to get it done sometime this year, because 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 speaks of the importance of, kind of sewing away any debts that you have with Aña. So it's going to provide a lot of benefits and blessings. I mean, if anybody wants to recommend any brothers that they know in their areas or whatnot, if you see any comments, you're more than welcome, right? Spread the cheer. But in this Odu, it speaks of where Shango played the Batá drum, and they said he became so proficient at it, he would play all three on his own. So he was really incredible. And this is where he married her, and they had sons together. And it's where the cult of Aña, or Ayangalu, as it's formally known, manifested. And it's the same way over here, just like in Africa, right? A little sip of water. There's a lot of people, guys, man. We got close to 300 people between both apps. That's awesome. Share, like, etc. Awesome. So, touching on the spiritual aspect of things as well, this is an Odu that speaks very positively about all the great comment. It speaks about all of the Afro-descendant traditions that came from the continent, right? So one of them that, spoken of very positively here is that of Mayombe. Usually if the person has a 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗃, they could get scratched, or they're already scratched, or in the past life they were scratched, so they don't have to do it again today or now. But in this sign was where the Congos actually wanted to go to war with 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗃, right? And 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗃 heard about this. And he was a little bit troubled because he knew that they were very aggressive, almost savage-like, right? And he didn't want to go head-to-head to them. Not because he didn't think his tribe could put up a good front or possibly even win. He just knew that the bloodshed was going to be so bad that he wanted to avoid it on both sides, So he got a group of babalaos together. A 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗃 was revealed where Ifa told them to perform sacrifice with wood and goats, right? And when they did that, ultimately, the drums were confectioned, So the day of the battle came, and Ifa's message was to play. And 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗃 was a little scared because he's like, we're going to be playing this drum while these people are hacking us to death. And he put the three brothers up front, or four, depending, because over there it's four of them. And when the Congos were charging, they started, thank you so much, 200 people, man, that's wild. they started charging and, they started playing the drum. And when the Congos heard the drum being played, they all got stopped in their tracks. They all got paralyzed in their tracks. They had never heard anything like that. Some of them stood still, some started dancing, some started coming into trance, whatever. And at that moment, 𝗀𝗲𝗏 looked at the other general and they had a conversation. And 𝗀𝗲𝗏 said, your army looks a little distracted. He said, yeah. He said, well, this is what we could do. Either we could hack you down, because obviously there's going to be no way to get their attention while my guys are playing. Or we can all go home and make peace. We can respect each other's limits and boundaries. Maybe you can even get a set of these. And, the guy looked and he was like, yeah, I think we'll go home. In some versions, he was like, nah, we're going to die. And they all died. But in other versions, they decided to make peace. And believe it or not, the Congos actually got their drum here too. I think it's the 𝗀𝗲𝗏𝗶, if I recall correctly, right? And they took the drums back, los tambores de yuca, all of the drums here, even the ones you see in India played sideways, the 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗲𝗏, everything was born here, right? Music and its essentialness to life and joy manifested here. And 𝗀𝗏𝗏 was able to win a war without any bloodshed, right? So that's the first half of the story. But when you go into the second part, now the Congos had an issue with another tribe. And they came to visit 𝗀𝗏𝗏 once more. Divination was performed for the people from the Mayombe jungle. 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 was revealed again, where 𝗃𝗏 said they needed to perform an offering of 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃 to the strawberry tree. In this 𝗀𝗏𝗏, it speaks of the crowned fruits, whether it be the strawberry, the pineapple, any of the fruits that have a seeming crown on top, right? And when they did that, they were able to overcome their enemies and spiritually align and have the resources to be supported in, war to the point where they weren't slaughtered again. And in 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗃𝗃, based on this now, all of the people who practiced Mayombe said they were going to receive hand of 𝗃𝗏. Now, mind you, this is an Afro-Cuban piece of literature where all of the tribes converged upon Cuba. But 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗃𝗃 is one of the 𝗀𝗏𝗏s why it says even those who practice Mayombe ideally should have their 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏, right? Even though it doesn't interrupt their practice of Mayombe whatsoever, and it doesn't obligate them to have to do any more. So as we're going through these different pataquis and we're looking, it says we're on a negative path caused by spirits. When you look at all of the stories, like whether it was the 7 African powers, or even when the Ganguleros went to war with 𝗀𝗏𝗏, or when they went to war with another tribe and 𝗀𝗏𝗏 saved them, it's saying that we cannot try to resolve every conflict with aggression or heated discussion and discourse. We need spiritual backing. And a lot of people really don't like to take that into account because honestly, with the way life kind of evolves now, we don't really have time to think about that. There's times when we'll be in front of somebody having an issue, or we'll have an issue that's completely unrelated that needs our attention. The last thing we think about resolving with is spirituality, at least constructively. Or, oh my God, I have a problem with this person, let me do brujeria to them, and let's go to war. 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏 said here we needed to use spirituality in a positive way to avoid bloodshed, to avoid war. Because for all the people that are watching that have actually been in spiritual war, whether you win or lost, nobody wins. You know what I'm saying? So this 𝗀𝗏𝗏 says we have to have patience with each other, we have to have patience with ourselves, and we need to have good spiritual habits to be able to, progress. Another thing that manifested here from a spirituality standpoint is a certain type of misa or spiritual mass known as la misa de las 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗃 africana, right? So I remember when I went to actually go do Santo, and if you guys, I'm seeing all these great questions, man, be sure to leave comments, you know what I'm saying, and we'll get back to them later because there's so many coming in right now. There's no way I'd be able to address it and still get a decent discourse about this 𝗀𝗏𝗏 because there's still so much to talk about. Be sure to leave it in comments, email, reach out to the Botánica. Thank you so much for the support. But I remember when I went to do Santo that I think it was my godmother or somebody there had a spiritual debt that they needed to do this misa. So I remember this is where, when I was kind of going through my espiritista process, I learned how it's done. So what happens is you'll have the regular mesa blanca, right? And you'll have 7 cloths, the 7 cardinal colors, right? Kind of like the rainbow hanging from there, whichever ones are spiritually, associated with the house. And that'll be there. You'll have the 7 cups Usually they'll have 7 roses, or 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗄 negro. There's a certain type of a rose known as the Black Prince, which is gorgeous. That has to do with the Congos. I can't find them here in Orlando, but in Miami, I used to put them to the 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗲 every 2 weeks for sure. You know, and then sometimes as well, they'll put 7 palos fuertes, like a 𝗃𝗂𝗍𝗂 or a 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗃. They'll put 1 in each of those glasses as well. 7 cigars, one of my favorite things, right? You know, 7 candles, right, of each of the colors as well. You know, and they might even actually have like 7 saints on there as well, kind of like the candle does. And one of the stipulations there is, because we actually did a misa/cajón, where when one ended, the other one began, you know, which was pretty wild because just the energy in the house was like, it was vibrating, bro. And they invited a bunch of people that would come down with Congos and stuff like that, and during the cajón, everybody started coming down, you know what I'm saying? So it was pretty wild. But that misa is here as well. So if anybody's thinking about doing a misa, you guys are funny. I see the comments. You guys are funny. Members are funny. And you know, oh man, we got a super chat. I have my hand to be found. I have not done my misa. Is that what I need to do next? A misa wouldn't be a bad idea. You know, it's one of those things that ideally you want to do. In my humble opinion, I would recommend receiving a gungun, because through a gungun is how you're going to be able to organize all those spiritualities. So when you do a misa, they're going to come through much smoother. So I appreciate you, Ed. Happy New Year. And that misa was done. And that's one of the misas that's in this 𝗀𝗲𝗿. So if anybody here is an espiritista, or they really work the obra or the mesa like that, it wouldn't be a bad idea to do one like that this year, because these are the spiritualities. When we talk about like the rustic African spirits or the Congos, right? For anybody that's been in like an Afro-Cuban misa or whatnot, or in general, you know they come down pretty rough. Like I've seen people come down with a Congo the first time and run into a wall, jump off of a 2nd story. Like it's really wild stuff. Good God, 300 people. God bless you guys. And, you know, these are the ones that can really cause things to go crooked. So when we look at a prophecy, like a negativity of being on the wrong path caused by 𝗀𝗃 or spirituality, these same spiritualities who are trying to help us, being that we haven't elevated them, they're going to cause havoc in our life. And it's not by choice. It's by circumstance, right? If you don't feed a pit bull, when you put your hands on and try to pet it, he's going to bite you. Not because he wants to, simply because its reaction, its impulses, its instincts. You know, we have to make sure that we have our spiritual selves in line. Another thing, guys, not a shameless ploy or plug, but if you don't have a gungun, it is highly, highly, highly recommended. Boru boy, I've been following you for a month. Bendición. Beniel. Oh my God. That's a beautiful donation. Please ask away. Wow. E, you saw that? That's wild. God bless you. Thank you so much. Happy New Year. You're amazing. That's very nice. Boru. So it's very important to have our spiritual selves in line. And what a gungun does, and a gungun is provided by the babalawos as well. Bendiciones, Boru, Omal. And, you know, it's provided by the babalawos, and it's what was replaced by the 𝗃𝗲 of 𝗀𝗃. For all of the people that have the 𝗃𝗃, you technically don't have 𝗀𝗃 or a gungun, because the 𝗃𝗃 is nothing more than an extension of the dirt, where literally if you didn't have the 𝗃𝗃 and you wanted to feed a gungun, we could go outside and print some 𝗀𝗲𝗿s in the ground and feed the ground directly, and it's the same thing. The actual orisha or icon is 𝗃𝗏𝗏 gungun, which is made from the sticks of Atori with the 3 sacred feathers and the red cloth, and all of those has connotations here, because those tribes and all those ancestors reside within that icon. So just some food for thought, right? Okay, 𝗃𝗶𝗍𝗶. We're still going. We got a little bit of water. There's so many comments, man. This is awesome. God bless. Like the video, guys. Share the live, please. Thank you. So many people. This is awesome. So one guy that we can't avoid speaking about, or can't not talk about here, is Shango, right? Shango is probably the most prominent orisha here, besides Anya, right? And 𝗃𝗏𝗍, of course. Shango here, you know, he was a really talented guy. It says the son of luck or the son of money. And this really goes back to Shango. And in this sign, Shango was a chef. This Odu is known as el cocinero de 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲, or 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲's personal chef. And that gentleman was Shango. And in this Odu, and this is one of the Odus why I believe, the fireworks going off. This is one of the Odus why I believe the children of Shango by nature are wonderful cooks. All of my godsons cook, and they all have Shango done. A lot of you have been commenting on me wearing red. It kind of just happened that way today, but 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲 speaks of it, and I love the color red. But in this sign, Shango, who was 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲's son, was his personal chef. And the reason Shango was so sought after in that house for that is because he used to make all of the desserts for 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲. And the one that he would absolutely kill was 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲's arroz con leche, right? So the frustrating thing about Shango is that Shango would be able to do twice as much work with twice as much quality that in half of the amount of time that the other chefs or his servants would get angry. Quick segue. Do I receive egun from my babalao, or can my madrina do it as well? Egungun can only be consecrated by babalawos. The same way no one else should be giving the teja of egun is the same way egungun is only provided by babalawos. That is in the Odu of 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲, right? As well as 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲, as well as a slew of others. But babalawo. So if you have a godfather, get with him. Or if you don't, you know, you find a babalawo who's competent to take you through the process. And mind you, egungun is an 𝗃𝗍𝗍 orisha. It's one of the few orishas that I give in a complete 𝗃𝗍𝗍 fashion. Obiabata, the 𝗃𝗍𝗍 sighing process, completely 𝗃𝗍𝗍, because those things in totality did not arrive in Cuba. So I say this, the same way Africa can benefit from Cuba, Cuba can benefit from Africa. We need each other, because orishas missing like this can cause further processes to not be aligned. If someone doesn't have ori, if someone doesn't have egungun, if someone doesn't have 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲, if someone doesn't have 𝗃𝗍, all of the other orishas and processes are not going to be able to function at full capacity. So those are the four deities that everybody needs, besides 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲, obviously. But back to the story about Shango. His sous chefs, or his assistants, were jealous of him. And because of it, they decided they were going to concoct a plot to be able to destroy him. And what Shango made the mistake of doing, which 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲 told him in 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲, was to not over-delegate or trust anyone. And the four deities are 𝗃𝗍, egun, ori, and 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲, right? And he trusted them enough where he'd finish at noon, and he'd be like, yo, you guys finish the rest of the work. I did everything, you know, and you serve Baba, you know, when he wants it, and make sure he gets his, you know, rice and milk like I make it for him, like he likes it. And that night, they polluted it with salt, right? 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲 is one of the Odus why salt is a taboo for Orisanla, right? So when 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲 took a spoon of the arroz con leche, or the adun, he almost died. His blood pressure shot through the roof. It's not funny, but, you know, just imagining it. His blood pressure shot through the roof, and it almost killed him. So the next day when Shango came in and, you know, was like, hey, how'd you like the arroz con leche? 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲 fired him on the spot, and Shango was completely flabbergasted. But he said, I don't want no problem, so he just left. So now he was unemployed, and he went to visit 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲. 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲 was revealed again, where 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲 told him this was a result of him having overconfidence in people. And through this, now he had to try to find a way back into his old position. So 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲 told him to perform a bow and to act like he was busier than he actually was, being that he was unemployed. So when he went to the marketplace, now this is after a couple months, you know, symbolically, 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗲 was really depressed, because even though Shango made that one mistake, or he thought he was trying to kill him, he still really missed the arroz con leche. And that Shango would make. So when he saw Shango in the marketplace and he tried to have a conversation with him, Shango was running around acting like he was too busy to talk to 𝗶𝗸𝗏. And 𝗶𝗸𝗏 was like, dude, there's no way this kid is lazy, because look how he's running around. He's telling me he's got other people that are trying to work with him and all these other things. And 𝗶𝗸𝗏 really yoked him up. He said, hey, I need to talk to you. And Shango was like, what? He said, I need you back. But why'd you try? What happened with the salt that one time? And he looked at him, and Shango said, you know, I would never make a mistake like that. I know your whole medical record. I know you can't eat salt. And why would I put that much salt in an arroz con leche? That makes no sense. They tricked me. Like, they did that. They scammed me. They did that on purpose, you know? And, oh no. We detected inactivity. Forgive me. Okay, let me do this puzzle right here for I won't mention one or the other because I know they don't like each other. All right, now we're back. They wanted to make sure I wasn't a robot, right? And 𝗶𝗸𝗏 realized that it was probably true. So when he brought Shango back, he promised to pay Shango twice as much. And Shango said, I'll take it, but you have to let me put in my own crew, or let me do everything on my own, because to be honest with you, you were paying those other people and they weren't even really helping me like that. I was doing it all on my own. So when they got there, 𝗶𝗸𝗏 fired everybody. And Shango was able to stay as his personal chef, and he did everything on his own, and he was able to reap all the benefits. So when we look at this 𝗀𝗲𝗿, 𝗲𝗏 speaks of the importance of being self-sufficient, of being able to do things for ourselves, knowing when to delegate, knowing when to not. We're kind of living in a time where no one wants to work. You know, and we kind of look at the effect that COVID had on us. You know, it kind of made us lose faith in conventional employment. So we have to know how to find that balance where we still have to provide for ourselves, but at the same time, we still have to try to be entrepreneurial, because negative things can happen at any time, right? Let me see here. We have a super chat, I think, from Mr. LG. When receiving mano de orula, is your 𝘄cie consecrated based on the 𝗀𝗲𝗿 that comes out in your 𝗃𝗀𝗿𝗏? So it depends on the house that you come from. So I remember when I started my career, I used to pull out the 𝘄cie path individually. And I remember I got some information from Africa, and I started analyzing it, and I said, something's not adding up here, at least for me in my practice. And what I realized is, let's say someone comes with an 𝘄cie, because you ask randomly. You know, some people ask, you know, based on a reading that they've done for the person, but ultimately it's at random. You know, we'll usually start with La Roye and make our way down, but you might, you know, pull an 𝘄cie from 𝗵𝗶𝗸𝗏𝗍, right? The issue is what if that person comes with an 𝗀𝗲𝗿 in their hand of 𝗲𝗏 that is not compatible with the 𝗀𝗲𝗿 that their 𝘄cie is from? So for example, let's say the person came with 𝗃𝗏𝗍 in the reading, and we mount an 𝘄cie from 𝗃𝗏𝗍 for them, but they come 𝗃𝗏𝗍 in the hand of 𝗲𝗏. I just gave that person poison, right? Unwittingly, unknowingly, but still it's not compatible. Those two 𝗀𝗲𝗿s were enemies. It's like I give somebody an 𝘄cie from 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏 and they come out 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗏 in the hand of 𝗲𝗏. So what we do in our spiritual home is we mount 𝘄cie 𝗃𝗏𝗍, right? Which is the basic 𝘄cie for everybody. Now, if they want to receive an 𝘄cie from their sign, they could do that after having hand of 𝗲𝗏. Or for the brothers that I'm going to do 𝗲𝗏 to anyway, they can mount 𝘄cies from their sign of 𝗲𝗏 themselves, because they're babalawos. So that's how we kind of maneuver the 𝘄cie thing. But usually the way it was always done in Cuba is you pull a random path to get them through the ceremony. In Africa, from what I understand, they don't give you an 𝘄cie. You feed your godfathers, and then you receive an 𝘄cie from your 𝗀𝗲𝗿 once it's revealed, right? So basically, to 𝗃𝗶𝗶𝗍𝗏, just to take a moment. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but they're giving a bunch of criollo collares over there. So you see it on both sides of the ocean, my friend. So if someone is trained and prepared, 𝗲𝗏 is 𝗲𝗏 and 𝗀𝗏𝗿 is 𝗀𝗏𝗿. I'm not going to pay too much attention because we have over 300 people here who are trying to learn something constructive. And usually people such as yourself, you come up with these conversations because somehow someone's taking money from you. But if you focused on studying and understanding the concepts and fundamentals of the religion that was left to us on either side, you would see that in Africa too. It's being done. They're giving criollo collares, and their 𝘄cies are starting to look more like ours every day. So I don't buy anything from anybody. I have so many sources over there, I assure you. But you'll get blocked from this soon. So everybody say bye-bye to Mr. Akapo. Ifakambi. Aboru. So 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲, and this is what 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 is talking about, people such as this, because there's too much division and there's too much nonsense, and it usually comes down to money. That's why 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 says omoire versus omowo. What is it better, to be a son of money or a son of a blessed state? So ultimately, Ifa says it's always better to be blessed than to be worried about money, right? So he'll learn that, I'm sure. Keep watching us. So 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲. 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 has a beautiful proverb, or a beautiful verse that speaks of the voice of 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 filling the room of Orisha and Ifa. And what happened here is that 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 was somebody that really wasn't paid much attention to. He was somebody that really wasn't taken into account, right? And he was very frustrated by this because he wanted to be involved in the culture. He wanted to be a part of the Ifa practice, but he didn't realize initially how politicized it was. And apart from that, you know, he really didn't understand how to maneuver, and he didn't necessarily have the funds for initiation and all these other elements that really kept him from being able to proceed with his spiritual, you know, aspirations. He scrounged up some money, and, you know, he went to go visit Orunmila, and 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 was revealed. And Ifa told him to perform sacrifice to completely change his life. And he really didn't know how he was going to get the money. I mean, he did the ebo and whatnot, and then the blessings started coming in. And what he realized is that the more he chased money, the less blessings came in. But the more he tried to work hard and study and focus on spirituality, the money flowed no problem. So he was able to get together the money for his various initiations and ultimately his itefa. And when he did that, you know, he was revealed as the 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 as well. And through the process and ceremony, he actually converted himself into an oba, or a director of ceremony. And his voice filled the room because with his study and preparation, people started learning from him and growing, and he became a pillar, but he had to go through his process. So modernly, a lot of people want to get involved in this. I think if that wasn't the case, there wouldn't be over 300 people on this live. But everything is with a due process. It does cost money. It does take energy. You know, it takes all of these things. But if you're somebody that really wants to get involved this year, it's something that you have to prepare for. It's something that you have to spiritually align for. Because if the prophecy says, Ona buruku, you know, that of a distracted or a distorted path, Ifa is saying that, you know, we have to get organized, because if we try to take shortcuts and get distracted, you know, ultimately, you know, we're not going to get anywhere fast. And the more frustrated we become, the less we're going to practice. So it's important to get organized, save, find a spiritual elder who has the competency and preparation to be able to get you to the position you ultimately want to be, because there's so many. So that's what Ifa is saying here. Self-initiation, overindulging in literature that you're not compatible with, any of these things is going to be counterproductive and just going to lead you further down a wrong path. And in a year, no one wants to be a year away from their goals, right? Which is ultimately 2 years wasted. So 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲, you know, speaks of anybody having the potential to become whatever they want within the spirituality. You don't have to be Cuban. You don't have to be black. You don't have to be African. You don't have to have some sacred bloodline that goes all the way back to 𝗃𝗲𝗃𝗃. Ifa is the spirituality of human beings. So if you study and you prepare yourself and you learn, Ifa is yours, right? It's just like earth. Earth belongs to he who works it. So if you're not putting a yam in the ground, it really doesn't belong to you. So everybody has to benefit earth on some level or form. And 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 says that because 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 has a proverb that says, any woman alive can birth a babalawo, can birth an olorisha, can birth a king, can birth anything. And this Odu speaks of that. There's a pataki where the woman, a point that I'm going to bring up is I'm not a huge fan of, but we're going to kind of look at what's best for everybody. But when the woman went for divination, it was identified that while she was pregnant, she was going to give birth to a child that was going to be grand, right? Or be somebody that was going to be, you know, big. right, or have an impact. And she was told to perform 𝗏𝗏 to ensure that the child was going to be born as healthy as possible and aligned with their destiny as possible. When the child was born, it was a boy, in this story at least. He was groomed and prepared and healthy and progressive, and they ultimately initiated him as a 𝗏𝗏𝗹𝗁, where the 𝗀𝗏𝗹𝗁 was revealed in his 𝗃𝗏𝗏. And once again, he grew into the role of director. A 𝗃𝗏𝗍 is a director. It's somebody that's going to be able to help other people coordinate ceremony if they choose to delve into that. And, you know, the boy had a very close maternal relationship with his mom. And, you know, they were spiritually linked for a lifetime, you know, in the healthiest way possible. Now, a 𝗃𝗏𝗍 within the Afro-Cuban practices states that the child has to receive 𝗃𝗏𝗋 before the child is born. Now, what happens is this. It's not that the whole ceremony occurs, but certain conditions are left prepared so that as soon as the child is born, it can be taken through that process. But once again, leaning back on Eyobe and Obeyono, Ori has to have manifested on earth before it can be revealed. So it's not that the baby just comes out and we have a sign waiting for him already, or, you know, as soon as he comes out, we do it. I mean, any time after 9 days for boys or 7 days for girls is legitimate. It's just to clarify that, because a lot of people ask that and they're like, hey, a 𝗃𝗏𝗍, give the mano orula before the kid's born, please. I mean, if it happened, that's your 𝗃𝗏𝗋𝗋, God bless. But if, you know, we're able to kind of maneuver within that which was left as protocol by Orunmila, you know, there's no rush, right? In the meantime, we can perform 𝗏𝗏𝗍 to mom, dad, make sure they're good, and, you know, we'll be all right. All right, from 𝗃𝗏𝗋𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗏. Abure, 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗏𝗏 nace un 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗏. I mean, you know, we talk about 𝗃𝗏𝗏. I mean, we're talking about the physical human manifestation of 𝗃𝗏 on earth, right? So, 𝗀𝗏's like 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃 𝗀𝗃, where the coco turned into the rock, or 𝗀𝗏's like 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗏, which is the salaye of, or isaraye of 𝗃𝗏𝗏. 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃 speaks of the unity of both of them. Concepts of 𝗃𝗏 are in Eyobe and Oyekummeji. Varios 𝗀𝗏, right? So, a little sip of water. 300 people, man. Awesome. A bunch of great, anything here? All right. Awesome, guys. Like the video, share it. We're going to go for a little bit more and touch on a couple more. We've gone over an hour, but we love what we do. I can't think of anything other than this, other than being with my babies. So let's see. 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗏𝗃. Oh, Batá, right? So there's a story here that's a little spicy. And I remember the first time I heard it, I was a little horrified. But my godfather knew 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗏𝗏 very well. And Olorisha can throw obi. Yes, of course. And in this Odu, Obatala was a king. And Obatala had a wife, the queen, that he wouldn't spend much time with. And because of this, she would plead and plead for him to spend time with her and emotionally stimulate her and, you know, just be in a relationship. But he was too busy trying to, you know, make money and be a king and all these different things. So he really would put her on the back burner. So what ended up happening was that she actually started an affair with one of the butlers, right, or the servants of the home. It was convenient, and they'd see each other every day, so imagínate. And Obatala found out about it. And he was so insulted by what occurred that, you know, he actually had the servant killed. And he actually, you know, I'll get into that part of the pataki now. When Obatala was going to have this huge ball or party at his house, he invited everybody and the queen and whatnot. And the queen was there acting regal, but she was really trying to see, you know, where her lover was, you know, to see him again. But she noticed that amongst all the servers, he was not present. So she thought that was odd. And Obatala was watching her the whole time. And he asked her, he said, is everything to your liking? She said, yeah, a lot of people came. He was like, that they did. And when the time came for this big reveal that 𝗶𝗸𝗏 was gonna have, he presented the Batá drums, right, or the drums, and the tamboreros started playing it, and they started playing the music and whatnot. But the problem is, as they would hit the drum, there would be like these undertones of a man speaking, and the woman started feeling horrified because she could have sworn that that was her lover's voice. And when she looked at the drums, and every time they would hit the drums, they would hear a scream of, they killed me, they killed me. And she looked at 𝗶𝗸𝗏, and 𝗶𝗸𝗏 said, do you recognize the voice? And she started crying, and she said, yes, I do. He said, I know what you've been doing. And I took your lover and I skinned him. And I actually turned him into the drums of Batá. So it was just, it's a really horrible story, forgive me, but it's to an end, or to a point, right? This Odu speaks of the importance of fidelity. It speaks of the importance of focusing on our homes. Now, mind you, both of them were wrong, right? Because 𝗶𝗸𝗏 should have paid more attention to his wife. I always say the greatest balancing act men will ever perform is that between their ambitions and their families. And at the end of the day, familia, gentlemen, always, always, always choose your families. At the end of the day, none of our accomplishments matter if we weren't there for our children and our families. So that's what this Odu says. But from another aspect, you know, she ideally shouldn't have, you know, been unfaithful to him. I don't think the guy had to get murdered, but that's not my situation. But it's just a horrible story. But what 𝗲𝗏 is saying ultimately is that we have to focus on our homes. Everything starts from within. We cannot try to save the world if our home is in shambles. And that was 𝗶𝗸𝗏's problem. He was trying to fix the world and provide for the world guidance and all these different things. And, you know, he couldn't even, you know, attend to his home in a way to maintain unity and honesty and transparency, right? But actually, and, you know, when we look at the history of 𝗲𝗏, you know, the original drums were actually constructed out of human skin. You know, we talk about Africa and its history. So it's one of our darker periods, you know. And the ironic part is that 𝗃𝗶𝗍 has this story, and then in 𝗃𝗏𝗵𝗁 is actually where human sacrifice first manifested and was ultimately deemed taboo. So it's interesting to see that correlation between both of them. But that was the original birth story of the Batá drum. With time and later on, it ended up becoming the goat skin, thank God, and it sounded much better. But, you know, this Odu, you know, speaks of all of those situations, how it's important to focus on home. In this sign of it, 𝗃𝗶𝗍 was where 𝗶𝗸𝗏's children had the house upside down, and he abandoned them, and they had to plead for him to come back. It speaks of hygiene, spiritually, biologically. You know, we have to teach our children good habits. We have to have good habits globally, you know, maintaining our homes in a healthy fashion. Because to be honest with you, with an Odu like this and a prophecy like this, it's kind of saying humanity and the global population as a whole, we could be doing better, you know. And you might be watching this and have a very healthy home, and God has blessed you to have the ori, to maintain a beautiful situation. But as a whole society, this Odu speaks of deterioration with this prophecy. And the interesting aspect is, if Oduduwa is governing it, Oduduwa really has no patience for this. You know, with Oduduwa, it's really a black and white, you know, separation. There is no gray area with him. Either it's right or it's wrong, morally based on nature. So 𝗲𝗏 says we must always find ourselves within the constructs of morality that nature has provided. That's why earlier, when I said a message for 2025, we cannot get caught up in this world cybernetically, you know, because at the end of the day, when this disconnects and, you know, we have to go back to our families and walk around our neighborhoods and interact with our brothers and sisters, that's real. This is beautiful. This has a huge impact when used constructively. But if not, we're just going to keep deteriorating as a society and a spiritual community. So 𝗃𝗶𝗍 speaks of all those things. You know, in this Odu was where Oshun became very wealthy. So it speaks of investments and the importance of making money work for you. 𝗃𝗶𝗍 is known as the son of money, but money is, you know, it's like a lot of these big financial guys say cash is trash, you know. So it's very important to put your money to work for you. You know, I was watching this recent short with my wife about, you know, the difference in outcome between someone who saves 20 years worth of savings versus someone who invests over 20 years. And, you know, the difference was astronomical. The person that would save $20 a week ended up with like 200 grand, maybe. And the person who invested ended up with a couple million. So this 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗲 speaks of the importance of investing. It speaks of the importance of making your money work for you because, you know, as such, money deteriorates. It's constantly losing value. You know, we expect positive things, you know, as we progress into the near future, but we have to take control of our economic well-being. And this is what this 𝗀𝗲 is saying. If you put in the work, exactly, money is a tool, KJ. If you put it to work for you, this year could be lovely for you. But if you're just trying to do the conventional, because Shango was trying to do that. He's like, yo, let me do my little part-time. I'll go party all my money off. You know, and he was like, but, you know, it gets to a point, you have kids, you have a partner, you have obligations, and you have aspirations and a lifestyle to maintain. You need a little more money. You need a little more space. You need a little more influence. And Ifa says through spiritual alignment, everybody can achieve that this year. So that's really exciting. But Ochung here invested in gold. So that's not that you have to invest in that, but it's something that, you know, is a possibility, or investing in other things as well. You know, invest. Gosh. I'll go with one more pataki because I'm sure there's more information, but oh, this is an 𝗀𝗲 that speaks of the importance of maintaining control over vices, right? This is the process of fermentation. So this is the 𝗀𝗲 where grapes were first turned into wine. This is the 𝗀𝗲 where palm trees were first fermented into palm wine, where tobacco was first fermented into cigars, and how everything had to be in moderation. So it speaks of the importance of having moderation. It speaks of the importance of investing once again, because all of these are very lucrative, you know, industries when maneuvered with control. But in this 𝗀𝗲, it speaks of the importance of, you know, offering all of these things to 𝗀𝗃, whether it was the rum or the wine or the cigar or any of those things, to really attain that spiritual elevation. It was when it was incorporated into it. But there's one last story that always really stuck to me because I liked it so much, and it speaks once again about the ancestors before we go ahead and bring it full circle. In this 𝗀𝗲, it speaks of when 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 was a very prominent 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲. He was a very, you know, high velocity paced 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲, and he was doing very well for himself, right? But with progress comes detractors, naysayers, jealousy, and envy. And they started doing witchcraft to him, and being that he was trying to, you know, actually make money and work, he didn't have the time to take care of himself as much because he was working for clients, and then the people took advantage of that opportunity and hit him up, right? And they left him paralyzed from the waist down. So with this, you know, he was not doing well. Some would even say it was 𝗵𝗸𝗶𝗍𝗔 who came and checked on him because he heard what had happened. Ironically, the affliction was to the legs. And when divination was performed, the 𝗃𝗶𝗍𝗲 itself was revealed, where Ifa said they needed to make offerings to the jungle, right? Or to the ancestors in the jungle. And when they went, they actually ran into the apes, right? And when they gave the offerings and they had a conversation, they explained to the apes why they were doing what they were doing. And they were like, yeah, no problem, we'll fix it. So they went, and I believe the 𝗵𝗶𝗸𝗲 was with a guinea hen, or an 𝗵𝗃. And they performed the 𝗵𝗶𝗸𝗲 at 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲's bedside, and they were able to miraculously assist him in rising, right? Or getting back up. And they always told him, if you ever have a situation or you ever feel like you're spiritually heavy or whatnot, you need to resort upon your egungun icon. Because if we are the apes, we represent the ancestors. We represent those that came before. We represent the process of evolution, right? So whenever you need us, especially with an affliction to the bones, or in this case, your legs, you know, we'll be able to resolve it for you. And 𝗃𝗶𝗍𝗲 thanked them, and, you know, he made a real habit of taking care of his egungun icon and honoring them and praising his ancestors. And he was able to protect himself against all of the negativity that people were sending him. This 𝗀𝗲, once again, makes reference to spirituality. The person has to attend to egungun in its most rustic form. There aren't many other things, if any, that are going to be able to replace that in a way that is going to provide the results that the person is looking for. This 𝗀𝗲 speaks of us as a spiritual community. Ifa says in this 𝗀𝗲 that if someone is doing well, We have to applaud them as long as they have humility. And we must use it as motivation and not a means to envy. You know, we've been very humbled by all of the support and response that we've gotten on this channel. But to be able to have this channel, it took years of us looking at our elders and being inspired by them and all the amazing things they were doing to be able to even get motivated to study, to possibly be able to help others, right? So it speaks of that, the importance of egungun, the bones, and progressiveness. So I'm gonna take these last 10 minutes and touch on some questions. Going back to my friend LG, no, by no means, you're perfectly fine, my friend. I don't mean to cut you off, and again, apologize for all the questions. Oh, we look up to each other, brother. We raise each other. Mi esposa hija Ochun Otura Rico, consejo que le puede dar. So, with Otura Niku, there is a pataki where Shango and Oshun were married. And where Shango and Oshun were married. And they used to get money together. They used to, you know, really make moves, and they both had the capabilities of making a lot of money because Shango was a drummer, Oshun could dance, and you know, they had this great thing going. But envy, right? Always the envy, always the hate, always the lack of motivation and frustration by those who don't want to put in the work to get to where they want to get to, right? They got along. They got along here. This is one of those, like, 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 says they were able to do it, or 𝗃𝗶𝗍𝗃 says they were able to do it as well. Now, there's some where they didn't get along. Imagínate. But what ended up happening was they were married in various odus, like 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗍𝗃, 𝗃𝗏𝗃, 𝗵𝗏𝗸𝗏. I would say in more odus than not, they were married. So what ended up happening was they went for divination. Otura Orire was revealed, where Ifa said that they needed to stop telling everybody how well things were going for them. They needed to be more discreet. They needed to protect themselves. And they were going to do just fine. And they needed to hide their money. They need to put it in a place where people weren't going to be able to curse it. So one of the things that was utilized was the canutillo herb. And I can't remember the name of it in Lucumí right now. But it's on the tip of my tongue, but it escapes me. I don't think it's 𝗿𝗏𝗃𝗃. I don't want to say that. But regardless of which, they got canutillo, and they took their money and they covered it with it. Or some people say they even buried it at the base of that tree. And the tree spiritually protected it in a way where people weren't able to curse it or steal their money, any of these things. And they were able to really rack up. And, you know, with that, they were able to invest more, grow more, work less, be around their children, spend more time with each other, which is really what we should be doing. We get a little more money, we need to focus on each other and have a great time. Another thing that Otura Rico could do with Ochun is put honey by the front door in the corners of the house. Like, you could put an actual bowl of it, or you can do like a cross of honey in each corner of the house. And if it works, you're going to start seeing the ants try to eat it. Right? And please, in Otura Rico, one of the things that cannot be done is you cannot kill ants. When they come is when the prosperity comes, right? That's in the Odu of Otura Rico, where Shango and Oshun were married and they became wealthy together, right? Not everybody has that pataki, brother Eduardo, you know? So, you're welcome. And so, yeah, but for the brother LG, that's Ochun and Otura Rico. You know what I'm saying? It's a beautiful Odu. Otura Rico is a beautiful Odu when we're able to protect ourselves from the detractors and maintain a certain level of discretion. You could do that on the I would do it on the inside, because at the end of the day, if the money comes to the front door and it doesn't come in the house, you know, it really doesn't matter, because it has to come in the house. At the end of the day, money outside of our house is not ours. So I would mark the house up with honey in the corners inside the house, or at least by the front door, so that it comes in. Oh, let me see here. Oh, so many. Oh my God, I have another one down here. Eric, thank you so much. Okay. Very nice. Make sure I'm not forgetting. There's so many questions. Let me see here. Guys, if we want any super chats or anything like that, not a shameless plug, but we're getting down to the last 5 minutes. If anybody has a question about La Letra del Año, or anything, you know, in general, you know, please ask away, you know. Greetings. The 𝗀𝗲𝗹 that's being referred to, 𝗵𝗶𝗸𝗲, is 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲, or 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲𝗍, right? You gotta let the ants come in. You gotta, if it's the little ones, it doesn't have to be the big ones. I remember in Hialeah, there used to be these huge sugar ants, and so they used to terrify me. And then if they're fire ants, even worse. A good book for beginners. You know, we recommend a lot of 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲𝗍's stuff on 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗋. You know, he's a great man. He's put a lot of time and energy into our practice and empowering us. Might have some literature coming from us very soon, so be on the lookout for that. So definitely. Yes, this letter of the year is from Miguel Febles Padrón House, La Comisión. So if you bury, well, that was an interesting one. Hold on. That's more for somebody that has the 𝗀𝗲𝗹 of Oturarico. I wouldn't just go and bury money necessarily. It could also be symbolic of the story. Yeah, 𝗀𝗲𝗹𝗶 is a fabulous piece of literature. I recommend it for anybody getting started for sure. How can we prepare the children? Get them their hand of 𝗃𝗏. That's the greatest investment you can make in your children spiritually. Get them their hand of 𝗃𝗏 or their 𝗃𝗏𝗋, so that they can know their destiny, so we can know our destiny. Their destiny, and how to be the best parents we can to them and guide them. Oh man, the herbs, that's a great question to Aneta. Yeah, we'd email the information, no problem. But to Aneta, yeah, today's his birthday. Oh my God, yeah, happy birthday to 𝗵𝗶𝗸𝗲𝗍. I think I saw the video of when they were making offerings to his ori. Beautiful, man, beautiful stuff, man. God bless that man, wherever he is, man. Great information. You know, but as far as herbs associated with 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲, the herbs that have to do with the 7 African powers. So shout out to 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲. Thank you, Papi. We'll see each other soon. Iboru. And the herbs that are associated with 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲 are like the herbs with the 7 African powers. Things like 𝘂𝗵𝗏𝗏, 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏𝗏, you know, 𝗃𝗏𝗄𝗏 fuerte. You know, 𝑚ar Pacífico would be a good one. Vencedor, 𝗿𝗶𝗏𝗏. Herbs like that, strong herbs are really good, especially if someone has Congo spirits and whatnot. What orishas are guiding us? So 𝗿𝗏𝗹 and 𝗃𝗏. There are a lot of letras del año. I saw that in Miami, they actually came with the same one. And that just lets you know that ultimately the spirituality, there's like a thread that connects us all. You know, I respect all of the brothers. I really do. I respect all that they're doing. At the end of the day, it's blessing 𝗃𝗏. It's benefiting 𝗃𝗏. At the end of the day, you got to find an establishment that, you know, that you believe in. It's interesting to kind of look at all of them, especially, you know, to kind of see the commonalities between them. But the reason we interpret the casona is because my elders were there, you know, some of them, you know, back in the day, you know, when they were still incorporating themselves, you know, God rest the dead, God bless the dead. 𝗿𝗏𝗹𝗁 passed on, I think, within the last 2 years, so that's pretty sad. But, you know, it's the one that, you know, I've always believed in, and the one my godfather instilled in me. So it's the one that we focus on. But they're all fine. I mean, you know, it's good to look at the global one and then look at the one in the country where you live. But, you know, in a place like Florida, you know, you're going to have a couple different ones. I know they did one in Tampa. I know they do multiple ones in Miami, you know, all over the place. So it's good to take all of them with a grain of salt. But once again, and I think this is a great closing note, is that at the end of the day, you have to do an ebo from your 𝗀𝗲𝗹 of 𝗃𝗏, whether it's hand of 𝗃𝗏 or as Babalawo, and you want to get your annual reading, and you can kind of space them out. It's not that it has to be al cantazo opening up the year, because, you know, it could be depending on whatever rates your professional is going to charge. It can be an investment for sure. So definitely getting ebo done from your sign, guys. Definitely, you know, get your annual reading done with at least 𝗿𝗶𝗍𝗏. And, you know, I think this is going to be a beautiful year. We wanted to get this out quick, you know, because people want to know. And honestly, we love interacting with you guys. And, you know, just looking at the 𝗀𝗲𝗹, I love it, 𝗿𝗶𝗍𝗏. You know, shout out to all the people that I know that have made this 𝗀𝗲𝗹 shine, you know. And, you know, just closing thoughts, I guess, man. Any last minute comments, you're more than welcome. But if we weren't able to answer your questions, please email the Botánica. Comment this video. This video is going to be in the lives section of our YouTube channel. I'm not sure how TikTok works. as far as that, you know. Oh, another super chat. You guys aren't letting me go. All right, from Eric. Thank you. Are we allowed to the 𝗶𝗶𝗍𝗶? We have Mano de Orula to communicate with our issue. So in 𝘃𝗶𝗃𝗍, yes. They instill the concepts of 𝘃cie𝗂𝗋, which is done every 4 days. And, you know, they're allowed to throw 𝗶𝗶𝗍. But we, in the 𝘊𝗻𝗵 tradition, do not see that as, we don't see that as sound based on the 𝗂𝗲 of 𝘃𝗶𝗍𝗶, where it says to be able to communicate with deities, you must be a deity yourself. And when you become a deity is when you initiate via 𝗿𝗲𝗍 or 𝗏, which is Orisha initiation, or through 𝗿𝗲𝗏 or 𝗿𝗏𝗏. So that's the only way the 𝗶𝗶𝗍 is going to respond to you based on our concepts. Now, you know, respect to the brothers over there and sisters over there, but we have our concepts. So if you're initiated 𝘊𝗻𝗵 Afro-Cuban, no. But if you practice 𝗃𝗍𝗃, yes, depending on your lineage and the posterity they provide you. So if you were initiated 𝘊𝗻𝗵 and you're not a huge fan of, shout out to 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗄. Thank you, absolutely, my brother. Thank you so much for the support. 21 months, yo, good God. And if you were initiated 𝘊𝗻𝗵 and you're not satisfied with that, you can continue 𝗃𝗍𝗃, just like somebody who's 𝗃𝗍𝗃 that is not satisfied with 𝗃𝗍𝗃 can continue 𝘊𝗻𝗵. No problem. So 𝗃𝗏 is 𝗃𝗏. And I think that's another resounding message here. Oh, I got another pataki. I'm sorry. I really want to say this one because it makes reference to the... And then after that, I'm done. I'm done. In the 𝗂𝗲𝗿 yes, you can practice both, but ultimately you got to, you know, see which one you're going to focus more on. In the 𝗂𝗲𝗿, maybe we might do an episode on the 7 African powers, but that's pretty much the Eduardo. Mi 𝗂𝗲 es 𝗃𝗶𝗍𝗶𝗍𝗶 𝗃𝗏𝗋. Yo soy 𝗃𝗏𝗃. Ese es mi 𝗂𝗲. Para que lo sepa y lo tenga bien presente, mi querido hermano. Burú. Entonces, in the 𝗂𝗲𝗿 is where a concept of 𝗃𝗏𝗍 was born. And the word 𝗃𝗏𝗍 means 𝗃𝗏𝗍, which means the creation of the 𝗃𝗏. So what happened in 𝗃𝗏, and this is why it's so important for everybody to do their annual 𝗃𝗏s, right? Because this is where the 𝗃𝗏𝗍 was born, or the 𝗂𝗲s that construct the framework of the 𝗃𝗏. So back in the day, when divinations were being performed and 𝗃𝗏s were being done, there was no guideline. Like, people would just put random signs based on their lineage or what they thought sounded nice or what was easy to learn, etc. And they weren't seeing the results that they wanted to see, right? So they went and visited Orunmila because they had complaints. And they said, oye, the 𝗃𝗏s are not working the way you said they would work, and we're not getting the results that we want to get, etc. And we want some answers because, you know, we're performing sacrifice and spending money and we're not seeing any results. So Orunmila performed divination, the Babalawos performed divination for the community at large, kind of like they did just now. And 𝗃𝗏𝗿 was revealed, where the 𝗃𝗏𝗍 manifested, where 𝗃𝗏𝗿 identified the 𝗂𝗲s that were going to basically provide the template to get the best results from the sacrifices that were being provided. So let's say, like in the Afro-Cuban tradition, the famous Arco de Poder, or the Arch of Power, right? You have 𝘊𝗍𝗏𝗏, which provides the blessing. You have, you know, the 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏, which is the 𝗂𝗲 that we're ultimately cleansing. You have 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, which is the supervisor of the 𝗃𝗏. You have 𝘃𝗶𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, which is the 𝗂𝗲 that brings down the spirituality of the sign to the tray. You have 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, which is the 𝗂𝗲 that cleanses it. And 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗃 is kind of like the notary of the 𝗃𝗏. He provides the seal, right? Now, when you look at the 𝘃𝗍𝗃, it's very similar to ours. Like, a lot of the signs are the same, different, you know, process, you know, the way it looks. A lot of it looks common, but a lot of it is different as well. But for example, where we paint all of the 𝗂𝗲s on our tablero, over there, they'll paint, I believe, 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, the 𝗃𝗏𝗏, and then 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏. And then they'll pray in 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏 as well. 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏 is there, 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏 is there. It really depends on the lineage as well. But there's certain 𝗂𝗲s like 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is there, 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 or 𝘊𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Like you see that they have an 𝗲𝗶𝗶𝗲 as well, and they're both fine, and they were all identified here in 𝗃𝗶𝗶𝗲. And when they started incorporating those 𝗃𝗲s based on the logic behind them, we started seeing all of these results that we still do to this day, where both 𝗃𝗏s are completely efficient. So this 𝗃𝗲, and to bring it full circle, this 𝗃𝗲 𝗃𝗶𝗶𝗲 is where the 𝗃𝗏𝗶 first manifested, where it speaks of the importance of 𝗃𝗏 and not allowing other things to distract us from doing that which is most important. You can go to 100 tambores, life's not going to get better. You can go to 100 misas, life's not going to get better after a certain point. Like, at the end of the day, no matter what it is that you practice, as a human being on earth, everyone has to arrive at the 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗏 or the 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏. That is what 𝗃𝗶𝗶𝗲 says. And it's not anything that shouldn't be handled with humility. We 𝗃𝗏𝗹𝗏s have to do 𝗃𝗏 as well, if not more than, you know, the regular practitioner or civilian. But this 𝗃𝗲 says that without 𝗃𝗏, we're not going to get far at all. All right, one more super chat and I'm done. I got to get back to my family. I love you guys. Diana the Goddess, thank you for teaching with integrity. I recently received my hand of 𝗃𝗏. Congratulations. I look forward to learning more this year. Well, 𝘄𝗶𝗶𝗏𝗏 and Our Roots podcast and Botánica candles and more is an option. Guys, I love you all. I appreciate you all. Yeah. Oh, I tell you, I don't have time for the detractors, man. God bless y'all. I tell you, you know, people, and this is my closing thought. You have people that rather than being appreciative or thankful that someone shares information with them that they don't have, rather than saying thank you, brother, or we appreciate you, or, you know, God bless, they want to debate everything. And just because I have a story that you don't have doesn't mean I know more or you know less, or back and forth, right? So, you know, it's very important that we're careful with people like Dennis and Eduardo and all of you people, because all you do is divide 𝗃𝗏. A lot of frustrated people, you know, you have a lot of people that didn't learn 𝗃𝗏 criollo and they got frustrated with it and they went to 𝘃𝗶𝗃𝗃. You have people who didn't learn 𝘃𝗶𝗃𝗃 and then came criollo. At the end of the day, what you should do is get together. Dennis, sí existe. Tú no lo tienes, pero sí existe. Me parece que tú te tienes que informar más. Lo que estás haciendo es bajando tu propio prestigio alante de tu homofase. Entonces, en vez de ser un detractor y un conflictivo, estudie más. Y así te dejo. Guys, I love you. 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗏𝗏. Take care. 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗏𝗏. Dale.